We are recording. We are here at Kindred Hospital in Beaver, PA on Sunday, July 8th, 2012. And I am here to interview my father, Bill Alansky. This is your life, Bill Alansky. I would love to hear some stories about what it was like growing up in Newcastle and how you met my mom and things like that. What is your earliest childhood memory?
Well, we had a gang of 5 of us that would play basketball every Saturday night. I worked all day Saturday at Gus's clothing store, and our motto was Gus's pants are down. And we had quite a bit of fun while we were working, and not all 5 of my buddies worked there. I was the only one working there. They worked elsewhere with their dads or other things. Uh, it was after work that we had our real fun. After work, every Saturday night for a solid 52 nights, we would take our paycheck. I got $10 for working all day Saturday, 12 hours. And I would spend that Saturday and be broke the next week. And
How old were you?
I was like 14, 15, 16.
Oh, so you were in high school.
Oh yeah, yeah. Where some kids were making $30, $40 working for their dads every week. But we lived with what we could get. And Saturday night was special because after playing in the church league basketball games, we'd go to the burlesque show. And they'd let us in because we paid for a ticket. That was the reason. And we would watch the partly naked ladies come down the aisle
In Newcastle, PA.
and yell and scream and throw popcorn and all kind of crazy things. But that was fun, and that's what you probably did if you were a teenager in some other big city.
Wow, you never told me this story before, Daddy. I never know you went to a burlesque show as a teenager. Where in Newcastle was that?
Yeah,
Where was the theater?
the theater was in Youngstown.
Oh, okay, so you drove
Yeah,
to Youngstown to go to that show.
we'd get to Youngstown. Then after that, we'd go to this Italian restaurant and get a bucket of spaghetti. Really, it was like a bucket of spaghetti. Nobody could ever finish it, and it was like $1 or something with 3 big meatballs in it, and we all loved spaghetti. And that was the only place we could buy a bottle of beer.
What was the name of the restaurant? Do you
I'm not
remember?
going to say the name because they still might be in business. But it
Well-
started with an L, and it was very Italian.
Well, it was a long time ago, Daddy. You're not going to get anyone in trouble if you tell us.
Well, I forget.
Now, you must have been older than 16 if you were driving to Youngstown.
Well, I wasn't driving. Chuck was driving.
Chuck who?
I'm not saying that either. Everybody will know who Chuck was.
Chuck Gilman.
Yeah. And
And that was your first job, working at this?
Phil Greenberg and Jerry. One was an ace basketball star. The other was an ex basketball star. And we all had fun. It was a fun thing, mainly. And
So it was a clothing store that you were working in then?
yeah, Gus's men's pants
Men's pants.
and
And-
shirts and everything.
And
Men's
then what
clothes.
was your second job after that?
My second job was with Uncle Morris, and Morris had a men's clothing store also with ladies, children's, and infants. So that was a little more experience, and he let me do a little of the buying too, very little, with his okay. But when pink and black became a big thing, he was very much against buying pink shirts for men. But after I showed him where I had 7 kids come in from high school request a pink shirt, and we didn't have any, then he gave in to buying a few, very few. But they sold real well, and he was smiling after that. So that was my Uncle Mo, and we had lots of fun.
Was that Morris Cant's?
Yeah,
And the store was Cantz's, right?
right. Dance's department store.
And how long did you work there?
Probably about a year. And then I had to leave for greener pastures. And he was trying to talk me out of leaving, saying that's as much as what he was paying me was as much as he had ever paid anybody for working for him. And I says, well, now times are changed and I gotta go. So he shrugged and he took it in good graces.
How old were you?
I was probably 15.
And then where did you go on to? What were the greener pastures?
I got a job at the mattress factory in West Pittsburgh.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know the mattress factory was that old.
I was on piecework, and I got 6 cents for every mattress I finished. So I had to put the tufts, you know what the tufts are, those little things down the middle.
Right.
And down both sides. And I did that with a big machine. And they had a old woman doing the work prior to that job. And once I got on the job, unfortunately, they laid her off because I could do in one night what she was doing in 2 nights. So there was no use for her to be there for them, which I'm sorry to say was my fault. Anyway, that was the beginning of my fabulous career.
So what happened next? So you're in high school, you're working at the mattress factory. Then where did you go from there? What was your next job? Or how long were you at the mattress factory?
At the mattress factory for a year and a half.
And then where did you go after that?
I'm trying to think. Click. Is it off?
No, it's on.
I don't remember where I went after the mattress factory.
Well, we could fast forward to you're 18 and you're graduating high school, right? Now, when did you meet Mom?
Well,
Before you were still in high school when you met Mom?
oh yeah, I was still in high school.
So tell me about when you met Mom. Tell me about that day.
It was a porn carnival in Youngstown at one of the big Jewish temples on Belmont Avenue, or maybe it wasn't Belmont. It was Elmwood Avenue, something like that. Anyway, I met her there, and they had a little booth where you paid $1, you donated $1 to the synagogue, and you had a pretend marriage, and you were allowed to kiss the bride. So I wanted to kiss. She's calling.
Somebody else. Don't worry about it.
Okay. She, I lost my train of thought.
They had a booth where you could pretend to get married.
Yeah.
And you could kiss the bride.
I wanted to kiss her pretty bad because she had given me a dig that her eyes were in her head, not elsewhere, if I wanted to look at her eyes. So I knew what that meant. And I shifted gazes immediately. I didn't want to offend this steaming beauty. And we got along, and I took her home, and I told her I wouldn't be able to call her up for a date for about 6 weeks. And she was always curious about it. Later, after we were married, she asked me, why couldn't I says I had ordered my car and it wouldn't be delivered for 6 weeks. So when I got my car, we became a regular thing every Saturday night, which was fortunate it was only one night a week because I couldn't afford a Saturday and a half night.
So you would drive from Newcastle
To Youngstown.
to Youngstown, and then didn't you sometimes take her to Pittsburgh for dinner once in a while?
Very seldom.
But you told me you took her to Poli's one time.
One time, well.
That was a big date, though. You drove from
Yeah.
Newcastle to Youngstown to Pittsburgh, back to Youngstown, then back to Newcastle.
Well,
Was that an anniversary? Was that a special occasion?
probably, if I remember right, it was.
A special occasion.
Yeah.
That was a nice restaurant. So how long were you dating before you realized she was the one?
Oh, but don't forget I went to the service for 2 years.
I thought it was 4 years. It was 2?
2. Randy was 4.
You were only in for 2. I did not know that. I thought it was 4.
From 70.
No, it wasn't in the 70s, Daddy. I was born in 1961. It would have been in the 50s. 50s, Daddy.
That's right.
50s. You got married in 57. So it would be early 50s, maybe.
54 to 57.
Okay.
And then,
So you got married right after you got out of the service.
oh yeah. In fact, we moved up our wedding date to, we were going to get married in June. But once our parents met, I decided that this wasn't going to happen. Our marriage wasn't going to happen once the parents got to know each other a little better. So she and I discussed moving up the wedding day. She says, you know what everybody's going to think. Well, when Randy was born, our firstborn, who was born 18 months after we got married,
Everyone did the math and they knew it was legit.
her mother, as we were waiting for him to get on this earth, her mother remarked to me, her mother and I were waiting in the hospital for my son to be born. And her mother remarked, she never did thank me for not having her pregnant on her wedding day. She had visited me out in Colorado, where I was stationed, and her mother, well, she told me later afterward, her mother expected her not to come home from there. She expected her to get married out there and stay there. I said, well, your mother wanted to get rid of you. And she went, ooh. So that's the early stages of BA.
Tell me about the wedding proposal. How did you ask Mom to marry you?
I just said, you know, I'm pretty sure I love you now, and I think we ought to get married. And she says, I do too. That was pretty much the words we used.
She told me that you said, grow old with me, the best is yet to be.
Well, maybe, I don't remember.
Do you remember picking out a ring?
No.
Who chose the ring? Did Mom pick it out or did
Probably.
you pick it out?
Probably Mom brought one back from South America. She went to visit her sister.
No, I'm talking about my mom. My mom's ring. Your Audrey's ring. Your wife's ring. Didn't you buy that?
My mom's, yeah. My mom went to South America with Becky.
That's where you got Mom's wedding ring from Bubby.
I think. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Well, she figured they were in on the ex-gang, and that they get a better deal. As it was no great deal. Because her mom inspected the wedding ring right afterwards. Took her to a jeweler to find out.
We're just moving a little closer so we're out of the nurse's way when she walks in and out. But
Okay.
you're fine, Daddy. You can keep going. Thank you. So, tell me about how you started working for Fisher's. How did that come to be?
Well, when I came home from the service, I bumped into my dad at 6 in the morning. I was just coming back from leaving Audrey, and my dad was leaving for work. I was coming home at 6, and he was leaving for work at 6. So that sort of put a crush on my love life.
This is back before you got married.
Yeah,
Right after you finished the service.
Dad said that if I was going to live in his house, that I'd follow the rules and get a job and come home at a decent hour and go to work at a decent hour. So that day I told Mom, or he said, or I could get my blankety blank blank back in the service. So that's what I did. I got a job, and the only person I knew that had jobs was Fisher's, and I went over there, knocked on the door, they let me in, and the man that did the hiring says, "Oh yeah, I know your parents. You come in Monday, start Monday." So that was short notice, but I started Monday, and I thought I was going to start, and they had 3 stores in Newcastle, but with my luck, I had to start in the store in Warren, Ohio, for a man named Bunny Wright.
Bunny.
Bunny.
I never heard of a man named Bunny. That was his real name or a nickname?
Nickname.
So you had to drive from Newcastle to Warren every day for work.
So I got a room in Warren just to sleep in, and it was closer to Youngstown than Newcastle was by a couple miles. So that worked out mileage-wise a little bit better. But everything from there went on good. We had an apartment, and lucky in those days, the parents were still giving gifts to their children that got married, and we got one group of parents gave us a washer and dryer.
Who gave you washer and dryer? Bubby and Sadie?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah.
And then what did Grandma and Grandpa give you?
They gave us a dishwasher.
Oh, nice.
And a refrigerator or a stove. I don't remember.
So this is right after you first got married?
Yeah, we had that in the apartment when we came to it. The apartment was all furnished.
And was this in Youngstown?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was one of her mother's apartments.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
But I was really mad that we had to pay rent.
She give you a discount at least?
Yeah, I suppose.
Wow. So you lived in Youngstown, and then Rand was born in Youngstown, and I was born in Youngstown, and then you moved to Lorain, Ohio, when I was a baby. So why did you move from Youngstown to Lorain?
Because we got transferred from Youngstown to Lorain.
Did you get promoted?
That was sort of.
What were you doing before, and what was the promotion?
Well, I was an assistant manager. Then I became a manager.
Oh, okay. So you moved to Lorraine to be a manager of a store.
Yeah.
And then you were in Lorraine for about 2 years. And then you guys moved to Pittsburgh.
Right.
Now, was that another promotion then?
Well, it was a bigger store.
So you were still store manager, but of a
Yeah.
different...
Well, that was as much as you could go, because
back in those days.
the other jobs were family jobs.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you moved to Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
and you're in Pittsburgh for a couple years. And
And
then we moved to Buffalo. So what happened? Another promotion or a different type of job from Pittsburgh
well,
to
both.
Buffalo?
Both. It was a promotion, but I became in charge of the ladies' departments, which we took over in a chain of stores, ladies and children's, in 5 stores now.
So what? Fisher's bought out another company?
Yeah.
What was the company
And
they bought out? Do you remember?
Something like Value King or so, some name like that.
So they acquired these stores, and then they needed someone to manage them. Now at this point, were you still a store manager or a district manager?
No, a store manager,
Okay.
because the store was run by an outside concern, and all the departments were some other shoe company owned the shoes in that store.
Oh, okay.
Some
Subcontractors.
domestic, you know, it was all leased out, and we happened to win the lease on the ladies. And
Oh, okay.
see,
Okay.
they picked who they thought was best at what they did, and they did nothing but numbers. The home company that owned the store, and took a percent of everything you sold.
Right, right.
So then eventually we moved on to bigger and better things, and we bought 5 stores in Connecticut. After 2 years in Buffalo, Tonawanda, something like that. Tonawanda.
That's my earliest memories are in Buffalo as a little girl.
Well,
Do you remember the family next door
yeah,
that they had a little girl named Michelle?
yeah,
Do you remember?
yeah,
Do you remember what happened with her mother?
yeah.
Tell me.
Her mother borrowed a couple potatoes one night, and says her husband's coming home, and she didn't expect him, or she forgot, or something. She needed 2 potatoes. So Mom naturally gave her 2 potatoes. Well, that was on a Friday night, I guess. Well, then Saturday night, the woman knocks on the door and says, "Here's 1 potato back. I cooked it, but I didn't have to use it, so I give it back to you."
I never heard that story before. That's pretty funny.
That was, I can't think of their name, Albert or...
I don't remember their last name, but what I remember is that her mother wouldn't let her play with me because we were Jewish and they were Catholic.
No, that was somebody else.
No, that was Michelle. That was Michelle. That was in
On
Buffalo.
the other side. This woman was Jewish.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm talking about a family that had
Down the street.
a family that had a little girl
Yeah.
the same age as me.
That was in
And
Pittsburgh.
no, it was in Buffalo because I was in kindergarten and we rode the bus together. And she was my best friend at school. But then when we came home from school, her mom wouldn't let her play with me. But then according to mom, she had so many temper tantrums and insisted I want to go play with Dina that her mom finally gave her permission to play at my house, but I was never allowed to play at her house.
Oh. Okay.
And I remember one day Michelle and I drew on the sidewalk with crayons and drew on the cement steps going up to the house. And Mom was really mad. She said, "You know better than that. You know to draw in your coloring books and paper. You don't draw on the sidewalk." And she went in the house and got a bucket of soap and 2 scrub brushes. And she said, "You two made the mess. You two clean up the mess." And I remember Michelle was always this tough girl who never cried, and I cried 100 times a day. But Michelle, that was the first time I saw Michelle cry, was when Mom yelled at her and said, "You have to clean up your mess." And we both scrubbed and we got all the crayon off, and we never did that again. And I really, as an adult, I look back and I really admire Mom, because if ever it were true, let the punishment fit the crime, that was a good punishment, because it took us 10 times longer to clean it up than it did to do it, so we knew never to do that again. But that's my memory. So then we went from Buffalo. Okay, so what were you doing? You were a store manager in Buffalo. Then
These were
they bought stores in...
complete stores that were owned by Fishers, except for the tobacco and candy and flowers.
In Connecticut now, you
Yeah.
mean. Okay, so then you got transferred to Norwich, Connecticut.
That's when we bought the 5 complete stores.
Okay, and then were you the district manager then in Connecticut, or were you
Yeah.
Okay, so you were promoted from store manager to a district manager at that
Yeah,
point.
it was the first district Big Wheel went into.
So what was that like, 5 years in Connecticut? What was that like?
That was good. It was good. I pretty much had my own boundaries, and we were very successful. That was the best part of it. Yeah.
I remember having to make a bulletin board and show what my dad did for work,
Really?
and cutting out these squares where all the stores were and putting the names of the cities on the map of Connecticut, and going to school and showing everyone all the stores where you were. I was from 1st grade to 5th grade in Connecticut.
Well, that's
And then
over 5 years.
I came home from school the last day of 5th grade, and the moving van was in front of the house. Last day of school. I think you maybe already had gone up to Newcastle. But tell me about, so how did you find out about getting transferred back to Newcastle? How did that come
Well,
about?
they called me on the phone. Called me on the phone on a Thursday. We have a different job for you, and we want you to be here Monday. This is
Seriously, they called you on Thursday in Connecticut to be in Newcastle on Monday?
Right.
Really?
Right.
I never heard that before.
That's pretty fast.
Yeah.
Most companies give you 2 weeks to think about it.
And wasn't that when you became a buyer?
No.
Oh, you weren't a buyer when we first moved back to Newcastle?
No.
What was your job in Newcastle at
I
first?
was a company supervisor. I had access to any store and every store. And that stepped on a lot of feet, because there was a lot of guys that had worked for this company for 30, 40 years, and I'd only worked for them for, say, 10 years. So we'll continue this at another time.
All done for today?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Daddy.